So the first step is self-discovery. Man, know thyself. Who are you?
Fantastic. Who exactly is a creative? And what are some of the misconceptions that still plague the creative industry?
Because there's a difference between just being a creative and being a creative entrepreneur. The difference now being you're not just doing it for fun or because you love it, but now you're making a living off it. So I think there has to be that clear distinction. And what you've got is not, oh, I can sing, I can draw. No. What is the depth of humanity, empathy, those critical values? Do you embody any of those things? You have to figure that out first. Once you do that, you light that fire, that is not dependent on external factors. This is who you are.
I'm feeling it right.
No, it was crazy. Mr. Milo doesn't believe in anything is impossible. No, that doesn't exist. Everything that needs to be done must be done.
Welcome to the Ignite Room. Here we share stories on faith, leadership, excellence, and industry insights, because we believe that storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to share ideas with the world and to also inspire action. Today's conversation is especially for creatives and professionals who want to achieve meaningful work without getting burnt out or losing themselves. My guest today is a Nigerian creative, a leader whose career spans film, advertising, multimedia, art, digital content, storytelling, music composition, and creative technology. He is widely recognized as one of the prominent voices driving the integration of artificial intelligence and creativity in Africa. He was recently awarded by the most influential people of African descent as the AI Advocate of the Year. He's the founder of Nigeria Artificial Intelligence Film Festival and currently leads content at Money Point Africa. He was formerly trained in fine arts and applied arts at the renowned University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He has spent nearly 20 years plus shaping brands, building narratives, and influencing culture across the African creative landscape. I have given so much hints. I'm sure that you already have an idea of who I'm talking about, and he is no other than Obinna Okerekeocha. You're welcome, Obinna.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
It's really good to see you again. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Sure.
Where do I start, Obinna? Because back end, you've already been giving me a lot of you've been sharing a lot of insight back end. So I remember when I was riding with you sometime in Port Harcourt, and
September,
then,
correct?
Yes, you had a friend in the car as well, and both of you were reminiscing about the old days, and it was obvious that a lot of growth has happened, with your community. So my first question is that you take us down memory lane. What's your journey been like? Obviously, Obinna, you are an OG before IG. Right? So I want you to do a comparative analysis of what the creative industry was like back then and what it is like now.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thank you very much for having me, and it's great to be here. In comparison to then and now, I think it's interesting because I look at what the creative effort and what the creative process was like before all these showcase platforms. You know what I mean? Social media, essentially. I think the difference really is, I think back then. You didn't have a lot of access to information. So, what has happened is that the social media democratized the availability of information to provide, like, for instance, things around skill sets, things around, knowledge sharing around a particular skill set. Like, for instance, you can, if you're trying to get into, say, videography, you just go to YouTube and just type videography lessons or, introduction to videography, and you find that. Then you had to go do what you call, go to somebody and sort of an apprenticeship. So you look for, somebody who was a specialist or, somebody who had a studio or something or, and then you learn under them. And then everything you learn is basically what they know, and they pass that knowledge on to you, and then you have to find time to go sort of figure out yourself. So, and again, I started my career working in Nigerian advertising agencies. My first job was in 2005, so it's actually 20 years at McCann Erickson, has to be McCann Erickson. And then, I had to learn under senior art directors, Like I remember, I'll never forget him. I keep telling anybody that there's a guy called Christian Muarin, and I remember in 2000 when I was doing my industrial attachment, I did that at SD McCann, and then when I finished, I came back to work there. This 2000, and then 2005 I came back to work there. So, I learned. He taught me Photoshop, and then so like I said, that whole thing of somebody teaching you stuff, right? And then the difference was that you didn't have any place to showcase anything you were doing. You had to relearn it because nobody's watching. Here everybody learns one thing and then you go, oh, I do X. And no, you had to learn it. You had to have results with it, And at the time working at the agency, whatever, skill set you have was geared towards helping build a brand, ship a product or sell a product. You get my point? So it was quite interesting. So I think that things started to change when, and let me even take this back. So my father, before me, used to work in an ad agency. He was the creative director. He worked at Lintas from 1975 and retired in 2000. So all my life, I'd always been primed to be a creative because I was inspired from my father. His father before him, my grandfather, was a photographer in the 1940s in Ibadan. So I have this. I come from a long line of creatives. So for me, like before the age of 8, I said I was going to become an artist. Nothing else was important to me because I grew up because what used to happen was back then my dad would have his people from the studio who are working on art as artists come to the house and he show them his work. My dad used to do posters of Fela and the Hikers and Steve Bucknor, and he went to Yaba College of Tech and was best graduate student in 1975. So at some point in the 1980s, my dad was probably one of the top 3 illustrators in West Africa, and highly sought after because then there were no computers. So if you had to do any art direction, posters, press ads, you had to do them by hand. You had to be a great illustrator. So you draw everything. So apart from except if it's not photography, then you had whether you're implementing pen and wash, whatever it is you're doing, marker sketches with Pantone markers or whatever it is, you had to have the skill. And back then, so this if you went to the studio back then in the 1970s, 80s, or 90s in an ad agency, you found a big drawing board with T-squares, set squares, and precision. You had to learn the skill. So a lot of modern Nigerian artists now were what they call visualizers back then, in the agency. So this is how I grew up. This is the sort of experience and exposure that I had, So I remember sometime in 2008, working at Lintas, because I worked where my dad worked. My dad worked at Lintas for 25 years. I worked there after I left McCann Erickson. And then we had email. And then we were using IMAX at the time, and then there was email, and then we were sending, we're getting emails from clients, and then we're like, oh my God, company communication was not email. And then something amazing happened. There was this thing called Facebook. Like, what the hell is that? Facebook. I remember one babe, Hafsa, she came from America to do her, like an internship, right? And then she had a Facebook account, and then she was always on this thing called Facebook. Like, what is that? And she's like, oh, this Facebook is this thing where, you can talk to your friends and blah, blah. And then I opened one. That was first 2008. And then, so cool. Then suddenly people started joining. I think it's probably one of the sets, first of all, I think 2008. And then I said, wait a minute. So I could export my artwork as a JPEG, and then I can upload it on Facebook, and people can see it, right? And I'm like, oh my, this is so cool. And then I was doing, and then sometime in a couple of years after that, maybe like 2009 or 2010, there's a guy called Daniel Emeka who, really, really great creative at the time, started something called the Nigeria Graphic Designers. Yeah. And then, I don't know if, it became a community of some of the best graphic designers in Nigeria. Crazy. Like, people were doing amazing work. In fact, agencies, banks used to come and hire people, because, these guys were freelancers and stuff like that. So they'll come hire people looking for talent and stuff like that. Let me tell you one interesting story. Adekunle Gold used to be a graphic designer. He was our friend back in the day as part of so he was a graphic designer. Yeah.
I mean, I think I've seen
Yeah,
that
yeah.
information somewhere
Yeah.
online. So he was part of
Yeah, it was part of. Yeah, it was one of us, one of the guys. We used to, so we used to do competitions. We'll do posters. We'll do what we call we started this thing where we'll do posters. What's that word now? Spoof posters of movies, and we would do. It was crazy. Those things used to go viral back in the day, and all of us were all cool. So I mean, we had some really, really great, talented people there at the time. And then one day, Adekunle just started playing guitar. He'll post on his work and then he'll play guitar, and then next thing we know,
AG baby.
yeah, we still talk. Yeah, so he's a great guy. So I mean, I think that's pretty much the difference. I think that in the age where back in the day, before IG and all of that stuff and all the good stuff we have now, it was you had to double down to learn the skill. You didn't really have all the exposure, as opposed to now, where you can, and again, access to all the information around skills and all that stuff wasn't really available. But now you have an abundance of, I mean, like, shout out to guys like, what's his name now? So then came the DSLR revolution. We were talking about cameras earlier, and there's a guy called Philip Bloom, great, an American, British dude who used to work for, I think, the BBC and all of that stuff, and started talking about filmmaking using DSLRs. And that caused a revolution in the filmmaking world. People started adopting and using DSLR cameras, single reflex cameras to shoot film. And I think that shortly after that, we had, the influence was so much that I think Kunle Afolayan shot the Figurine. Was shot on a 5D Mark III at the time. This was how the entire world was changing. And why did that happen? Because of the democratization of information. Creators now had access to information that they didn't have before. People were now sharing. YouTube became a massive thing. People were now sharing, their skill sets, talking about what they've done, how to do this. And it was incredible. There was an explosion. I think sometime between 2009, 10, and 2012, there was an explosion of creativity just because people were able to share knowledge. So I think those are the parallels. But now, we live in a highly democratized world, especially when it comes to creativity. Anything anybody knows, they share it. They're like, okay, so this is how I did this. In fact, you have people who are even creating content. They're doing what they're doing. For people that are doing makeup, people that are doing makeup, this is how I apply this. So it's the age of knowledge, and I think that's really the difference. Then a few people had the skills, and they didn't really have the means to share. But now there is a means to share that skill set, and now everybody sort of has a seat at the table, and everybody is, so you're only limited by, how far you want to go is only determined by you and how much you want to search for knowledge. Yeah.
Fantastic. That was such a beautiful trip down memory lane. While you were speaking, one thing that stood out is you have been part of this evolution, growth of the creative industry. I think I want us to make it clear. Who exactly is a creative? And what are some of the misconceptions that still plague the creative industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that essentially we to look at it as it's an English word. Creative is somebody who creates, essentially. That's the operating word there. Creative. Create is the operating word. So if you create, you're creative because you created something that didn't exist, essentially. But I think the difference now becomes who is a creative entrepreneur. And I think that's where the difference is, because there's a difference between just being a creative and being a creative entrepreneur. The difference now being you're not just doing it for fun or because you love it, but now you're making a living off it. So I think there has to be that clear distinction. So I think that for anybody can become a creative as long as you figure out something that you can create that doesn't exist before, and it can be in whatever field. But I think that in terms of the specifics around the arts, creating within the arts, then that's really, specialized, so either you are a writer, you are a poet, you're a screenwriter, you work, within the film space, a cinematographer, whatever it is, that kind of thing. But as long as you're creating, an illustrator, an animator, whatever it is, you create, that kind of thing. And then there's an entire industry around that,
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Obinna, you are a filmmaker, music composer, you are an artist. Obinna, you are a producer, you're a creative director. I mean, you wear so many hats and you actually wear them very, very well.
Thank you.
So, at what point did you know what you were building? Or did it happen? Like, did it just happen and then you realize, oh, I'm building this? That's one. Second part of the question is, how are you able to express your multiple talents? Do you know, okay, it's time for me to be film producer, it's time for me to be a graphic artist? Is there like time and chance with those things?
To be honest, I honestly I wish I had the answer to that question. But I think the real fundamental response is this. I think it's just restlessness and just that, that irk to do something new. So basically, I tell people, like I said, I am a product of whatever my father is, because he's my ultimate inspiration when it comes to creativity and being an artist and being creative. Massive influence, but I also grew up in front of television. People. I meet some people and they think I schooled abroad and stuff. I said, no, it's just years of sitting in front of television and just watching, and just being exposed, right? Like watched so much TV growing up. And sometime in 2009, so I worked at two ad agencies. I worked at McCann Erickson for 9 months, and then I worked at Lowly Test for 3 years. Sometime in 2009, I saw an ad in the newspaper, and they were looking for it was a new TV station that was going to start, and it was supposed to be a 24 hours news channel. And I saw it in Tuesday Guardian. If anybody remember Tuesday Guardian, where all the job.
I don't.
You don't.
I'm not gonna pretend I do.
So back in the day, before Instablog and all that stuff, there was something called Tuesday Guardian. So the Guardian newspaper, so on Tuesday they published. It was the most sought after newspaper because all the vacancies were published on Tuesday in Guardian. So if you wanted to see, just wait till Tuesday, you see. So Tuesday Guardian, I remember in the office, Anthony Village, Lintas, one day I was just, so I had a colleague of mine, we're contemporaries, told me, I said, look, I'm applying for this thing. It's a TV channel and all. I'm going to apply for it. I don't care. I'm going to apply for it. Because for me, I was kind of like I said, restlessness. I was like, okay, I've done graphic design, I've done art direction. I was really good. I mean, I did some amazing work. I worked on rebrand of Close Up. I remember working with, back in the day. It has gone through a lot of iterations, but I worked very closely with the Unilever team. I worked on a bunch of, I remember we had a creative director called Colin Morris, who was British at the time. And we won several accounts. Remember, we won V-Mobile, which is now Etel now. We won Peak, so we did amazing work. Like, yes, between 2006 and 2009, we did amazing work. So I'm proud of.
In recent times, they say work rate they cry.
So we did that. Yeah, I'm proud of those years. But I wanted something more. I wanted to do more, and for me, it was kind of like I wanted to get. So we have the Z and Y axis for design, but we have the Z axis, which is essentially 3-dimension. I wanted to get into that space of doing something that was motion related, film. So I just said I was going to apply. So I remember applying. Called for an interview. I made it past. So this was NN24. That was the channel at the time. So Network 24 was supposed to be like the best news channel out of Sub-Saharan Africa. It was an affiliate of CNN, and we had first 100 that got employed at the time. So for me, that sort of put me on that journey, to this wherever it is I'm doing. I remember we were trained by ex-ABC, ex-BBC, ex-CNN and people. So there was a guy called Ken Tiven who's American, who was he used to work for CNN, vice president of CNN Technical. So he had retired. So what he did was he had this team, and they were flying around the world setting up news channels and news stations, from Southeast, in Asia, in the Middle East. So I had the founder of NN24 at the time, Tony Dara. He was working with them, and they set up NN24, and we were trained in Abuja. I remember it was the greatest 4 months of my life, where we were taught everything around it. We created a mock newsroom, and then we were like, we used the best of technology, So the whole concept was based on something called visioneering. So basically, who's a visioneer? So is the amalgamation of two words, vision and engineering. So basically, you are your own editor, camera person, and writer and correspondent in one person. So essentially, NN24 was whatever you see today as the modern news broadcast, we were sort of pioneers for that, that kind of thing. So I remember, we're trained by guys like Walter Rogers, who used to work at CNN, Femi Oke, who used to work at CNN. It's crazy stuff. This is, I think it's one of the best experiences I've had in my life. So that entire process, introduced me to this world of, creation, because I used to head broadcast design and branding, and this entire vista of essentially creating with the camera, that's essentially how I started, and then the rest of is history, So I went from there to, essentially working, brand comms, and then working in content creation at Red TV, So that's essentially how that journey started for me. So in expressing other things, like I tell people, I'm an artist first of all. So I went to art school. So creating is in my nature. So I must find a way. So painting oil on canvas and all that stuff. I started doing digital art. I started experimenting with video art. And I remember in 2018, I had a group exhibition with some great guys, all the great artists at Relay Gallery, titled Vignettes of New Reality. And for me, it was really around, exploring human movement, and using video clips and video shots and using the very textual video to essentially explore human movement. So that was interesting. So I'd explored a lot of that, So for me, and then the music, like I said, like I grew up in church, it became part of my life. I learned to play and all that. And I became obsessed with music for film. So I've actually composed music for an original Netflix film from East Africa. It's called Married to Work. I composed a track on it. So, so for me, the question is, how do I balance? I think the question for me, there's really no balance. It's kind of like how I feel, okay, so I need to make music now. So I just go down to my piano and play. I need to compose something. I quickly try that out. And then there's AI now, which, and I tell my community members, every night I'm prompting. Before I sleep, I must create several things. It's like, I haven't, for me, so if I haven't done that, I haven't achieved anything. And then there's work, my day job, I work around creating ads at Money Point and creating, business stories, So for me, it's kind of like, it doesn't stop. And that is like my oxygen, it's because everything is interconnected. The music drives the film helps to sell a product, that kind of thing. So for me, it's that, and for me, I have to keep, it's a system, and I have to keep experimenting, because I feel the day we keep trying, it's kind of like, and for me, it's learning. It's like learning how the world works, learning how the world we don't see works. For me, it's like, that metaphysical realm where you create things that never really, they're born from a certain subconscious, and then I'm using this dimension to bring them to life. So for me, it's purely it's beyond physical. So for me, I think it's the essence of my being. Like if you take away creating from me, it's like you want to give me. So for me, it's really, so it's natural. I seem to have a way to just yeah, exactly. I think that's the word. To just flow and just to be at one with it, because it is essentially part of me. So.
Wow, that is really profound, and I dare say that not a lot of people are able to wear this many hats and then just also flow. It's the way you're even talking about it. It's obvious that it's very natural.
Yeah.
Obinna, has there been a project that has stretched you, like really stretched you, professionally, creatively, spiritually? What's that one project that has stretched you all around?
Oh, great, fantastic. Yes, this project happened in August.
August this year.
Yes.
So
fantastic. I had content production, content marketing at Money Point, and we signed a big ambassador in person of Victor Osimhen, right? And this was massive. Yeah, thank you very much.
Massive.
It was massive. And then I now had the brief to shoot 2 TV commercials in less than a week. So I want you to imagine, and this is somebody who doesn't have time, who is, he doesn't live in Nigeria, he plays in Turkey, and it was, and again, I remember usually you have to plan these things, you have to do your pre-production, and you have to do all that stuff, and all that. And then we had set out, okay, let's say this week we're doing all the prep work, and then we're saying we'll shoot next week. We'll shoot say Wednesday. And then we now get back, my team now says, okay, no, we have to bring it forward because now he needs to travel. We're going to now do it on a Friday.
Earlier than planned.
It was insane. I remember me and the director just going like, what? This is, You don't understand. This was pressure. And if you know, anything around Money Point, it's about excellence. It's that everything has to be of a certain standard, and you cannot drop the ball. So, and in the midst of all of that, just throw in a public holiday because there were elections. So that was crazy. Like, I remember we Sora, someone we had to build. If you've seen the ad, we had to build a marketing that didn't exist in Sora. It was crazy. We did this literally overnight. Yeah, under the bridge. Yeah, where those kids play football. Yeah, we had to build a bridge. We had to build a market that didn't exist over there, and then we're dealing with area boys and we're doing all that stuff, and then we couldn't control the weather because the weather forecast was it was going to rain, and it was all open air. So imagine the kind of pressure. And we're talking about millions of...
I'm feeling it right
No, it was crazy. And then we filmed that, finished it, and then we had to be on set the next day to shoot another... Like it was... I didn't sometimes... how did I get through that? And I've been through some really, really serious... But that was something else. I remember we shot minus Red TV at... when I was working at Red TV as creative director. I remember we produced one episode of The Men's Club during COVID. Yeah. Oh yeah. I used to be at Red TV. So yeah. So I was one of the creative producers. I enjoyed that too. Oh yeah. And shout out to all the guys who were on it. Great team, Urban Vision. And the guys. Yeah, it was really really good. And at the time. So we were co-producers on that show. So I think we shot that during COVID. So that's another one. But this one was something completely crazy. Yeah. But it was fun. But it was all worth it because. It turned out to be great, got a lot of reviews, and obviously, we met our marketing target. So yeah.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Target is a big deal.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So you've talked about a couple of companies and organizations that you worked at.
Yeah.
Of course, you're still working at Money Point, but then you were at Red TV. And
yes.
You were also at the Tony.
Oh yeah. Great time. TF. Yes. As brand programs manager at TF. Yeah.
Lovely. So, how working with these organizations, right? How has that sort of shaped your perspective on impacts, through creatives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I think ultimately what I've learned in this journey is that it's all about giving back, and the real measure of your impact is how much you've impacted people. Like for instance, working at the Tony Elumelu Foundation on the $100 million Tony Elumelu, entrepreneurship program, $100 million over 10 years. If I see that, I remember traveling around Africa with Mr. Elumelu, and just seeing the entrepreneurs, doing amazing work, that kind of thing. Finding that the real impact is how you impact the lives of younger people on the continent, creating jobs, creating wealth, that kind of thing. So for me, it was a big eye opener, the fact that, look, at the end of the day, the sum total of your existence and your essence and your fulfillment is really around how you impact people. And this is essentially, for me, it's always when I meet people, regardless of wherever they are in their journey, I like to strike a conversation, like as to where what do you do, that kind of thing, and then give them tips or try and encourage them, because I feel that that's what we owe the world, that kind of thing. So for me, it's at the end of the day, it's really about impact. There's whatever it is that you're doing, you're writing a poem, you're writing a script, you're shooting a film. It should be geared towards impacting somebody else's life. So somebody says, oh, this work is great. I felt something when I was inspired to do this. It's so important. And so for me, I'm someone who's really driven by inspiration, because a lot of the things I was able to achieve is because I was inspired by somebody else's work, that kind of thing. So inspiration is such a big deal, because I feel that inspiration is a catalyst for impact. Yeah.
So how do you know what story is worth telling?
That's a good question. So I'm going to tell you this. A lot of some of the greatest movies we've ever watched, and some of the greatest songs we've ever heard, are things that meant something to the originators. So the best stories are the personal stories.
Like the song we're talking about.
Exactly. Our personal stories. You find out, sometimes it's, I think sometimes I understand commercialization and being relevant and trying to understand the market and the audience. That's great, audience intelligence and all the sciences behind it. But I think that what really makes you stand out, or what really makes impact, is you do something that matters to you. Because at the end of the day, we're human beings, we're all connected. We may not necessarily live in the same place, but we all have similar experiences about living on Earth and shared experience. We've all been through heartbreaks. We've all been through, we've had somebody lie to us and deceive us.
Yeah.
We've felt love. We've experienced real love. You understand? We understand what it means to eat good food. These things are all universal themes. Great food in Nigeria is great food in India is great food. Great food is great food, regardless of what it is. Love in Kaduna or love in Ogun State is the same as love in Philadelphia or France. It's the same thing. So universal. At the end of the day, if you tell a personal story that that matters to you, and you tell it with all diligence, intentionality, focus, love, great everything, it's going to resonate. It may not necessarily turn out. It may not happen immediately, but somebody would see and say, "Oh, there's something went into this," and that kind of thing. I mean, this is not neglecting all the other stuff around commercial filmmaking, but I mean, what is important is that you tell a story. Telling a story that matters to you is a great place to start from. That kind of thing. So, reach out. Think about. Put your life in perspective. What are the things that have happened to you? When you sit down and think about them, you find out that look, you actually have a story to tell. It's not. And what I see happen with a lot of storytellers here is that you're trying to mimic or copy something that you saw somebody do. Not necessarily. Look deep. Some of the greatest stories, you can find in your own personal life timeline.
So you say this is the same. It's the same guiding star for storytelling with commercial brands.
So that's a completely different beast because the primary essence of commercial filmmaking is to make money. Yeah. So so you have to look at, so it's really about the law of supply and demand. Okay. So what do people want to watch? And where do you live? Where are you situated? You have to understand that, the dynamics of that. So once you figure that out, so I'm trying to reach out to an audience or a community. What do people like? And so it all starts with research. So what I would say is, as a filmmaker, whatever it is, start a research. Now, the whole point of this is you're trying to sell a product. And I tell people filmmaking is a product. You're trying to sell a product to people. You need to go out and figure out, what do those people like? Do they like comedy? Do they like sports? Do they like whatever it is? If you're able to figure that out, put together a small group and say, okay, this is what I like. So let's tailor something around that fits that, and then let's package that. And so, then people like to see certain people. For some reason, it just works. Certain faces, certain characters, certain influencers, settings. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
So you figure out a way to put them in there, and then So it's there's a certain level of intentionality and certain boxes you must tick if you are playing in the commercial film space. Yeah.
Obinna, have you ever turned down? And this is like you spilling some tea right now. So have you ever turned down like an opportunity because it didn't align with your values at the time? Or it just wasn't, there wasn't an alignment with your values?
Let me see. I'm trying to think because this one has been going through my archives. Not that to be honest, I'm sure there is, and I hate it. I hate myself if I finally leave and I remember something. But off the top of my head, I haven't seen anything. I can't remember anything that I have turned down that didn't align with my. But what I'll say this is though, I remember what I'll say. What I'll say is this is though, what I don't do is, how people. I'm going to say this because it's a bit off script, but it sort of relates. I'm not the kind of producer who is looking for kickbacks. So let me say this. It happens a lot, okay, so you are the lead on a project and the vendor knows that, okay, thank you for giving me this work, here's X. So I tell them upfront, I'm here professionally, we'll do our work, whatever is yours, I'm not interested in anything. I say it upfront, and like, where's this guy from? So, and for me, that is because I've built a reputation where my name gets into rooms before I do. So I say that upfront because I feel that integrity is something that's completely lacking today. People, and again, you are, in as much as you're talented and you are celebrated, and if you don't have integrity and trust, you don't have anything. Because I feel that, people don't understand is what your brand, and what is your brand? Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. When I leave here now, people are going to say, oh, that guy, that's your brand. And if you don't have ethics, you don't have scruples, you don't have responsibility, you're not responsible, you're not the responsible person, people can't trust you. I'm sorry, that's your brand out the window. So for me, and that's what I'll say to creatives, have integrity, What is important is the work that you're doing. You're only as good as the work that you do. That is what speaks for you. Be true to it, that kind of thing. If you work for an organization, be true to your organization. Don't try to shaft your organization. Don't try to play fast one. Oh, after all. No. Don't do that. Time has a way of rewarding you for doing the right thing.
Obinna, I want you to stay a bit on this,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So, for beginners, or newbies who are just entering this space, what would you say is that extra, that makes them stay long, stay in power, and that also gives them the long-term growth?
Fantastic question. So I have a lot of people that come up to me and say, "Oh, I want to become a creative, or I want to learn videography, I want to act, I want to do this, I want to," and I just pause, look them in the eye, and say, "Why do you want to do it?" And when I say, "Oh, because I just like it, because it's just cool," but really, okay, that's fine. But why do you want to do it? I think that, and I'm going to say this with all sincerity. I think a lot of creatives don't really know what they want to do. I think that a lot of them are buoyed or are, completely mesmerized by, there's something powerful about being in front of a camera. Like in America, we had serial killers who killed because they wanted their 5 minutes of fame just to be on camera. That's how powerful that medium is. So when people see, oh, you're watching the YouTube film, you're watching Netflix, you're watching the cinema, you see this wonderful actress who has this great life, posting on Instagram, and oh, suddenly I want to act, and not knowing that acting actually takes work. It's something that is strenuous. You have to have, even if you don't have all the talent, but you have to learn, you have to understand, theatrics, you have to understand, acting, embodiment of characters, you have to understand stage management, you have to understand all these things. But what they see is the glitz and glam, and then so you have to understand the how long or what it takes to walk in those shoes, that kind of thing. So I think that what I think a lot of creatives need is understanding the weight of the responsibility that particular calling or enterprise demands. A lot of people don't do that. It's kind of like, oh, I just want to do this. Oh, I just want to become an influencer. I just want to. So by the time you drill down, what they want doesn't really have substance, that kind of thing. So when I find out there's somebody who's really serious about it, about what they want, that's when I sort of, coming and try to help them and try to point them in the right direction. And one thing again that I tell people is that consistency is really what defines anything over time. And this cuts across. It's not just about creativity. You have to show up today and show up in 5 years. That means you have to continuously show up in year 1, year 2, year 3. So it's not like, oh, I've done it today. No. A lot of all the guys who have made it, whatever it is, it's about the fact that they continuously showed up even when they didn't want to. The days that their bodies didn't allow them, they had to still do it because it had to be done. That is the difference. Like I tell people, like, when we were in Port Harcourt, I give an analogy to somebody and I said, if you're in a class and there's a guy who doesn't talk and everybody's talking, and this guy doesn't talk. Anytime everybody's talking about, what happened over the weekend, what happened, blah, 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 that big party, the guy doesn't say anything. The day the guy talks, everybody be quiet. Because he's been consistent at being silent. Suddenly, he has an audience. So the point here is, try to be consistent, and that is what makes the difference. That's what sets you apart. So yeah, I mean, the truth about the camera, we have cameras are everywhere. Everybody's on Instagram, everybody's on TikTok. It's great, but it comes with a lot of work. It's so much work. You see people who have millions and millions of views. Them, Fisayo, Shenwa and all, great Marcus Brownlee, all the great people who see, But go back to where they started from. Yeah. They've been at it for such a long time. So if you're not intentional, so what do you want to talk about? You must know what you want to talk about. You want to know what you want to create. Then be intentional about it. Then spend time being consistent. Consistency is not, I did it for 6 months. No. Do you get my point? You have to embody the thing, become the thing. Yeah. Do you get my point? So that's essentially the difference.
Yeah. And speaking of that, Obinna, you just even shared a story about how you had a tough project in August, right? So when stakes are high and deadlines are tight, like you had, how do you ensure that you are able to deliver excellence from idea to execution? Right. What's that process like for you? What's the system you have put in place for that?
So for me just like when I used to, because I'm a painting major from University of Nigeria. So before I started any painting project, I saw the finished picture in my head. I never really go into anything without seeing a finished picture. That's how I work. I sort of work backwards. So from my head, I know this is exactly what I'm trying to create. So for me, in that scenario, I'd seen the ad in my head. This is how I wanted to play out. This is so it has to meet these standards in my head. And then I could have a great team that I work with. I've got brand managers, I've got creative directors, I've got guys who I can bounce off ideas and say, okay, how do we do this? How do we do this? Kind of thing. But ultimately, it's my project to deliver. So for me, in my head, this is the standard that I want to create. And then I work, and there's something called grit. Grit is delivering at all costs. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, you have to deliver. And for me, and also it's something I also, learned working with Mr. Elumilo, because Mr. Elumilo doesn't believe in anything is impossible. No, that doesn't exist. Everything that needs to be done must be done, that kind of thing. So I always have that mindset, regardless of what the challenges that are happening, we will get it done, and if you have that get it done mindset, nothing phases you. Even when you're faced with a brick wall, you have to believe that you can get it done. And then I'm going to say this, have a great team around you. I think you are as good as the team around you, because sometimes, a man cannot make a forest, a tree cannot make a forest. You have to work with great people that understand the assignment and then help you deliver as well. So it's a combination of both things. You have to have an excellence mindset. You have to have grit, and you have to be consistent, and then you have a great team around you. I think these are the ingredients for success. Yeah.
Thank you, Obinna. I was going to ask a question, but I think you've already done justice to that, which is like, what are your non-negotiables? And please, if you still have more tips,
sure.
Go ahead. What are your non-negotiables when it comes to a creating process? So you've mentioned one is you see the end result before you start, right? What else is no matter what happens, these are the non-negotiables? Great,
fantastic question. So number one, you must know what you're doing. A lot of people don't know what you're doing.
I literally translated that in Yoruba. I read that in Yoruba.
So, one of the things we really, really, are big on at Money Point is what we call technical depth. You can't excel at a thing if you don't know that thing. You can't. I mean, for example, these guys, the videographers who are filming us, they have to white balance their cameras. If they don't know how to white balance their cameras, they're not going to get great pictures. Even if they're shooting with the Arri Alexas, the most expensive cameras, if you don't white balance your cameras, if you're not shooting with the right focal length, you've not fixed your focus. So you must know what you're doing. You must understand the tricks of the trade, the tools of the trade, your craft. You must have mastery at the very least, but on your way to having mastery. Because if you don't have mastery of your craft, how do you deliver excellence? You cannot stumble on excellence. You cannot, no. It has to be intentional. So number one, mastery, technical depth. Know it in and out. When they wake you up, you must know it. And then you have to be intentional. I've always said intentionality is so important than consistency. But I think for me, the biggest thing is technical depth. Understanding, having mastery of your subject matter. It is so important. You cannot be guessing. You must know it inside out. That is the only way you really reach the heights of excellence.
Thank you, Obinna. And you've talked about leading teams, not just at Money Point Africa, but
sure.
The industries that you've worked at. So what would you say leadership has taught you that being a team member, hasn't taught you or would not have taught you?
I think that leadership grounds you because you have to sort of listen to everybody. You have to be in a position where, you are very sensitive to what people are saying. Because sometimes, like for me, I'm a bit of a hypermaniac. But when you sort of slow down, you might miss something. So you must learn patience. So leadership teaches you patience. It teaches you how to see the best in other people and how to essentially look at situations from different points of views. Because sometimes, like the tunnel vision, this is how we want to do it. No, but sometimes you may be missing something, a vital element or a key part where somebody on the team is saying, boss, I think we should do it this way, or I think we should look at it this way. So for me, it's really about patience, and having the mind to be fluid around decision making. There are no absolutes, you have to be. And there's something I learned while working at Hayes Holdings and working with Mr. Underlimit. It's called the genius of and.
What's that?
The genius of and, A-N-D. Oh. So this and this, also consider this. Don't also be fixed on this. And this could also work, you get. So open your mind to also consider other things you may not have considered before. That's the genius of it. Because sometimes when when you're stuck upon something, you never know that this thing that you may not be necessarily be seeing can bring a completely different angle to what it is you're doing, and that is how greatness is born. So, I think in a nutshell, be open-minded, but also sticking to whatever it is, was your focus in the first place, without derailing. But you're open-minded, being able to listen to other people. So for me, in a nutshell, leadership has taught me patience, being open-minded, and and open to listening to others.
Speaking on the genius of art, we had the strategy session at my company recently.
Okay.
And one of the things the consultant was telling us was, so if you have a dissenting opinion, it's fine. But the way you phrase it is, I hear what you're saying, and I think we should look at it. So
absolutely.
Hearing you say again just
reinforces
connected.
it. Correct.
So still on you being a leader or acting in leadership roles, what would you say has been the most surprising or the hardest or the toughest lesson you have learned as a leader?
I think that as a leader, sometimes you have to be in a place where you're ready to accept responsibility for things. Because I know that one time, this happened on Red TV. I think we were trying to monetize our channel, and then it was being difficult. I made a judgment call, and so that it cost us something. It wasn't big, but at the end of the day, we met the target we were trying to reach. But the way I did it, because I had to make a judgment call sometimes, and I got flack for it. But what was important was that at the end of the day, we still ended up with the ultimate, what was our ultimate, end or ending, So sometimes you need to, if you see that there is an opportunity to do something and it's the right thing to do, sometimes take that leap. You might get flack for it, but what's important is that end has been met. That whatever it is that the focus was, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, you achieve that thing. But please do it ethically. Do it right. I'm not saying break the rule. You can break the rules. Yeah, break it. Like I break rules a lot. Breaking the rules is fine, but do it the right way. There are wrong ways to do stuff. When you start doing things that are unethical. But my point is, what the exact focus and the objective is. Make sure you meet that objective. But then, whatever you need to do to get it done, do that. But then again, do it the right way. So essentially, that's what I learned from that lesson. That sometimes. But look, the truth about it is that you never know in life. Sometimes you make a decision, you live with your decisions, and then everybody says, "Oh, yeah, decision was right in the end." But sometimes leadership makes you take that giant step to do something you've never done before. Take that leap. At the end of the day, a leader is, because at the end of the day, people are following you.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you don't always want to play it safe, because at the end of the day, people want to be inspired. This is leading us. So, if you're always, okay, let's play it safe. Let's not. Yeah, it's great to play it safe, but no risk, no reward, right? You have to go out there. You have to push boundaries and do stuff, that kind of thing, because that is what a leader does, that kind of thing. All through history, we've read about leaders who led their people through tough times, that kind of thing. So can you imagine Moses and the children of Israel at the Red Sea? Imagine if you were Moses. So that's for 1 second. Exactly. So, you have to believe God. Step into the water, put your rod down. That's what it takes. So to think of, apply that scenario to what happens today. So yeah, you have to lead, be strong, be brave, lead with the heart, and your head as well. It's a combination of both, that kind of thing. Your heart enough to dare things, and your head enough to know that this is the right thing to do. So yeah.
That's profound. Thank you, Obinna.
Sure.
And you have led us to the next question, which is, what role has faith played in your journey? How has it influenced you? How has it shaped you?
Yeah, so I'm born again Christian. Yes, I grew up in church, but I did give my life to Christ. So yeah, I'm born again Christian. And I think that in those, and I do this every time, I probably don't tell anybody, but even if, I'm about to do something and I'm very comfortable in doing, I always say a prayer. It's like, God, I'm speaking, but you're the one that's speaking through me. You're the one that's speaking through me. Give me grace. Let me say the right things. I don't want to, I always say that prayer, and that silent prayer puts me through those difficult times. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm in Germany, I got that, please help me. And I think also scriptures, your Bible is so important. I cannot overestimate how reading the scriptures are important, because the word of God is true. And then, his word is true. And sometimes you need a reaffirmation from reading the word of God. Like Jeremiah 29:11, I know the thoughts I think towards you, thoughts of good and not of evil, to bring to you an expected end. So those words are spirit and our life, And again, fellowshipping, it's so important, being a part of a fellowship, wherever that is. We have so many denominations. It has a way of reinforcing your faith and edifying, that kind of thing. So faith has played a really, really massive role. I don't think to be honest, I'll be here without the grace of God, to be honest, that kind of thing. It has played a massive role in my entire journey. That's for sure.
So, Obinna, has it cost you something? Short term, long term, and then looking back now, is it worth it?
Yes, it was worth it. Of course, it has cost me something, because here's the thing: I've been in situations where I had the opportunity to cut big deals and make a lot of money in dollars, and I said no, I won't do it. I've had the opportunities to, like, I have a friend of mine, Femi Bank Beton, we're colleagues, and we're quite similar in our ideologies, and I've always said, look, if we wanted to make so much money, we would have. But I said, no. So what's the point of making all the money in the short term and then losing the sanctity of my name, or losing the respect and losing trust? So for me, like the Bible says, a great name is better than, exactly. So for me, it resonates a lot, because, I tell people, one of the greatest things in life is being able to sleep well at night. Peace. Bro. That commodity is scarce, and you can't. I go to bed knowing that I am not. Do you understand? I'm not looking over my shoulder, because, do you get my point? Yeah. So and that's what doing the right thing. So for me, yes, I could have made a lot of money, but I chose not to. I could have cut deals. I chose not to do it, because number one, I'm a Christian. Number two, is against my personal principles, because that's not how I operate. I believe in doing the work. I believe in the dignity of my labor. I believe in the sanctity of what I do, the purity and the essence of what I do. Let that speak for me, even though I also like to speak. But what's important is that speaks for me, and not, I'm not doing this to earn, or because I've got kids. I've got the legacy to protect. I've got people who are looking up to me. I've got a community, an army of people who are looking up to me. And if I succeed and I do it the right way, they're inspired to do it the right way as well. So for me, it's so important.
Yeah. So how do you stay grounded?
Yeah, so staying grounded is two things. Like I said, being a child of God, the Holy Spirit, being a child of God, that still small voice that tells you, this is the way to go. Don't do that. Don't do this. Step back. Don't do that. I think that is the number one grounding that you need. And then after that, I think it's personal discipline, because as a human being, you need to be disciplined. Like I can share this. I think I can share this. My wife won't beat me up, but I'll share it. So since I left boarding house, and anytime I sleep on any bed, I always arrange it. Even though I'm in a hotel room, wherever I am in the world, it's a non-negotiable for me, and that's discipline. I must dress the bed. I'm a professional bed dresser. I can show you all the stretch everything, make sure tucked in with the pillows. I love to. It is, and I get my kids to do it. Anytime they don't, they know Daddy will shout. Anytime they don't dress their, it is a non-negotiable. They must, and then I clean toilets. I like it. I think there's nothing as bad. I get pissed off when I come in. I can't see on the bowl beneath white. It has to be white. So I've got all sorts of things, cleaning Harpic, everything. I'm always cleaning everywhere. It has to be white. And my wife is so thankful at me, because she doesn't have to do all that stuff. I do it. Because I think it's discipline. It's when there's certain things that are non-negotiables, and that's how you should live your life. When certain things that you do as routine, because guess what? Routine breeds excellence. When you do something every day, it's kind of like, it's a no-brainer. It's like your body's now wired to it. That's how excellence is made. You do something, and that thing could be the thing that you are doing now as enterprise, or as something that you're doing. Just find a way to focus on that thing constantly. Routine is the fuel for excellence. I don't want to say perfection, but it's the fuel for excellence. You have to continuously do that thing. Yeah.
Obinna, you recently founded the Nigerian.
Niger AI Film Festival.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I was introducing you, I mentioned that you also just got the AI Advocate of the Year.
Yeah. Okay.
What excites you about artificial intelligence? And two, what drove you to conceive or to execute the film festival?
Thank you very much. Like when people ask that question, I'm like, isn't it great when you just type in some things and something? Like that's the most amazing thing. Like, I mean, like, you know, like, I mean, the last 20 years of my life, I've been in 25 years, Photoshop. I mean, I started using computers in 1990, you know, a long time ago. Like my dad used to have the Macintosh SE and I grew up with computers. So, you know, I've always been drawn to technology, you know, and then I remember sometime 4 years ago, I started to see these creations that were not Photoshop, they were not Illustrator, they were not, I was like, what is this? Why are people creating this stuff? And then I did some research on something called prompting, and I discovered Discord, and that's where you could access Midjourney, which was essentially the first image generation model. And then I jumped into it, and I was like, "This is amazing!" Like, I was just, I don't know, I just kept going, and I remember, you know, just creating, ran through all my 500 credits. I just kept like, "This is amazing." So fast forward to now, you know, I play some role in Nollywood, you know, as an executive producer. I've done a couple of things. And one of the biggest challenges we have is distribution, right? And then I said I was going to build a micro dramas distribution platform, you know, curation, distribution platform, and streaming. So I put a plan together, put a team together. I was going to develop it. And then all my ideas come to me in the bathroom, you know. My wife is going to laugh at me when she hears this. And somebody said, but you know, AI is going to kick everybody's ass, right? But AI is really going to be the thing. So that's true. So I went to do some research. It's like, is there any AI film festival in Africa? I know there's a company I love so much. They're called Runway. They've been having a film festival in America for like 3 years. So I sort of, you know, liked their model and their approach. So I looked, there's none in Nigeria. I know, then I think before the time, I think the Eastern Nigerian Film Festival had a category for AI submissions, but it wasn't the main thrust of the festival. I said, okay, I'm going to do one. So in March, I started planning, put together a team. I said I was going to announce it on my birthday, which was April 5th. And I walked backwards. And then April 5th, I announced it to the world. And then, boom, it all started. I was like, I'm just going to do this, right? I don't even care. I'm just going to do it. And then people started reaching out to me. And it was like this whole thing, like, what is going on? I remember getting some backlash. I'm in some film groups, you know, some serious backlash. But then they all sort of came round to it, you know. So I think for me, it stems from this. I asked myself this singular question. I mean, I've said this so many times. What is the future of African storytelling? You know, and I think the future of African storytelling lies at the intersection of art and technology. I think that AI is what we need in the global South because if you look at the camera filming us now. This is an FX6 and it costs almost $10,000. Body alone, if you add the lens, is another $1,500 or something. Not everybody can afford that, you know. Even you know, smaller bodies, filmmaking is expensive. And even if you're an independent filmmaker, or you know, you have to pay a cast, you have to pay a crew, you have to rent gear, you have to get locations. It's money. But with prompts, you just need a laptop, even if it's a phone, stable internet, and then you can write the story you want to write. You can tell the story you want to tell, you know. It just gives the filmmaker agency, especially in Africa, to essentially just, you know, discover worlds that they never knew existed. And for me, that was inspiration. And I said, look, I knew there are a lot of young people who are essentially telling stories using this medium, how to bring them together, you know. So I started, you know, the community as well. So we are over 500 AI enthusiasts, creators, and filmmakers from across Nigeria and Africa and the world. So that's what they've been able to do. We had the first festival edition at the Alliance Française in September. It was great. Thank you very much. We had people from America come. You know, it was great. You know, so we're looking forward to the next edition in 2026. It's going to be bigger, better. September as well. Yeah, we want to keep September. Yeah, so it's great. So for me, it was the inspiration was, you know, I want to empower African filmmakers, empower African storytellers. AI is a tool, you know. We have a lot of backlash, and I understand it. But what people need to understand is the amazing opportunities that it provides for you. Things around VFX. VFX is expensive. There's a time when we had people go to South Africa, India to do VFX, but now AI provides that avenue for you to, essentially create affordable, visual effects, and then things around sound design. You can clean up audio. Like if there's any bit of, noise on this audio, one filter somewhere, it's gone. It's clean. You can imagine AI that turns mono into stereo. Like gives you stereo. It's incredible, right? Sometimes these days you don't even have to record with a stereo microphone. If you have the right tools, you can completely change that. So for me, these are the things where we need to actually empower people. And I thank God for the platform. We had a great outing. So that's essentially what it is. And interestingly, there's a film showing. My good friend Nia Kimolaya, he has a film called Colors of Fire, and we worked with him because there's some AI in the film. So I'm going to be on another podcast version talking about that process entirely. So I like Lee Not. He's a great, he's a great, visionary, and he's somebody who's not afraid to break ground. So we came together for 2-3 months, worked on that project. Fantastic. So there are some flashback scenes, some establishment shots that are AI, well blended in with live action. So it's really great. So it's an example of how AI can actually come together to even help traditional filmmaking. Because I keep telling people, stop this doom mongering about AI. This and that. No. You won't lose your job to AI. You lose your job to the person who knows AI. It's that simple. So whatever facet of life you're in, engineering, medicine, whatever it is, creativity, learn AI, understand how to use it at the very least. Everybody uses ChatGPT, but beyond that, understand how to use other models, how to apply to what you do, because that's where the world is. It's not going to change. So I'm sorry, guys, AI is not going anywhere. So you have to figure out a way to include it into the workflow that you do every day.
First is, now I'm even more excited to watch Colors of Fire.
Yeah, you should. Showing now in all cinemas.
So I'm very excited to watch it now. What would you say are the new roles in the creative industry for people now, especially with the introduction of artificial intelligence?
Yes, great. I mean, so now we have things like AI art directors, AI directors, AI producers, people who are AI producers. Like for instance, now there's something called Suno AI, which is, I'm sure if you guys have been paying attention, there are a lot of AI artists that are topping the Billboard charts now on Spotify that are not human beings, who are AI artists on Spotify. Oh yeah, it's a big, massive thing actually. There are AI artists. There was this particular one, Sunset something, that's the name of the band, and people were, it's like slow, it's like indie rock, and people didn't know, nobody knew until somebody just said this is AI actually. So there's a model called Suno AI. I think there's another one, there's Suno, and there's Udio. Essentially, you can create music with it. But what's interesting is that the guys at Suno AI went one step further. So, for instance, imagine you're a producer and you are, I'm producing something. So you're walking around an idea. You've produced maybe like say 4 bars of it, or a riff, or a melody line, or a hook, whatever. And you are sort of stuck. You have a creative block. You can export your waveform or your stems and bring it into Suno, and it can help you develop your idea. So it's not alienating producers. It's now involve. You cannot involve AI in your creative process. So that is how. So we have now there's going to be. I'm sure there will be a demand for AI music creators. AI, like there's already people who are involved in. There's AI designers. People who are using AI for set design. For art direction. So it's a complete change. If you go on LinkedIn now and just do AI, you see roles, especially within the creative space. That kind of thing. And there are AI engineers as well. People who build the real back-end stuff. So it's complete. We have a new 2026 will see, the emergence of a lot of jobs that are centered around AI. So guys, learn up, upskill.
And I think that's a good way to wrap up this conversation. But one final question.
Sure.
What would be your final, final points to a creative who wants to influence, shape culture, but they're just starting out? What can they start today?
Yeah, so let me say this. Yeah, and I'm going to speak from my gut. I think the start point, or the genesis of anything is so important. The problem is that everybody wants to shape culture and influence. That is the wrong place to start. You can, and don't get me wrong, it's good to, admire the people that you admire. It's great. But you need to discover yourself first. I think that a lot of people have not discovered who they are and what they are. I tell you why. Your inspiration is drawn from the wellspring of your being, who you are. If there's a lot of emptiness and everything is borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, there's nothing to, and that's why a lot of people burn out. Like, oh, I'm not in, because there was really nothing there to start with in the first place. Yeah, there was nothing. There was no depth of being in the first place, because that's where you draw from. That's where you draw from. And then when you're caught up with trying to be like everybody else, you find out that those people that you have are not necessarily perfect people. They've got their flaws. And indeed, you're like, oh, they have flaws. Oh my God, what have I done? So the first step is self-discovery. Man, know thyself. Who are you? A lot of people can't answer that question. Who are you? What have you got? And what you've got is not, oh, I can sing, I can draw. No. What is the depth of humanity, empathy, those critical values? Do you embody any of those things? You have to figure that out first. Once you do that, you light that fire, that is not dependent on external factors. You know this is who you are. I mean, obviously, yeah, there are sometimes that when we are low, we know that people, that's great. But you have to be a self-starter. It's so important. And then once you have that fullness of being, you can now branch out to the world. And then, let me say this. You don't start out, I want to do this. No. Start one thing. Build that thing. Pour everything you know into that thing. And then the world will come and look for you. You don't go out looking for the world. That's the wrong, because you're going to get burnt out. Because you are now against a million people. Focus on you. The world, I tell people, see, the people changing the world are not on social media. We talk about them on social media. Think about that for a second. People who are really changing the world, we talk about Warren Buffett, we talk about Aliko Dangote, does he post anything? Does Aliko post anything? People are the ones today, everybody's posting what they said or what they did. The people really changing the world are not on. So my point is, that's not your, yes, it's if you want to throw that line of, I want to be, that's great, you want to be seen. But my point is, it has to be from a place of trying to do something special, from a place where it's from something that matters, that kind of thing. Because one thing we know now, the world will see through the BS. They will see through it. So you have to be authentic, whatever it is that you're doing. So focus on something that means a lot to you, but it has to come from a place where, from the wellspring of your essence. If you don't have that, and that comes from knowing yourself, being yourself, coming into your own, you have to. It's kind of like, if you don't have anything within yourself, there's nothing else you can give. You can't give what you don't have. You have to first have it in you, and then you cannot give it out to the world. So I think that's really the way to go. Yeah.
Obinna, thank you so much. Sure. It's been such rich conversation.
Thank you very much.
You just bouncing ideas, listening to you share from your decades of experience, and you've shared so freely. So thank you so much, Obinna.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
All right. We had such a rich conversation today, and we have many more to share. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do, and also share. Thank you.